So the Acolyte press tour disaster was just the beginning between what happened with Charlie Barnett, one of the main actors of the Acolyte series, saying that Anakin was the one who destroyed the Death Star, and Kathleen Kennedy attacking fans that grew up with George Lucas's Star Wars and blaming toxic males on the current status of the backlash with the Acolyte series. It only gets worse when it comes down to Kathleen Kennedy, to Leslye Headland, and how desperately they have been defending the series at all costs. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So, look, the Acolyte episodes 1 and 2, as far as I'm concerned, they were pretty god-awful. But that's just the beginning. Just you wait, alright? Prepare yourselves. Strap into your seatbelts for next Wednesday for episode 3. I promise you, this is going to be the very episode that will break Star Wars. It will be the final nail in the coffin, and it will be worse than The Last Jedi. Alright, so stay tuned for next Wednesday. But what's interesting about this, moving onwards, has a lot to do with Kathleen Kennedy's position on things, and what she's been saying about the Acolyte quote-unquote critics, and those that are very loud and opinionated about, of course, episodes 1 and 2, and really kind of reacting to the fan backlash revolving around the first 2 episodes. Let's dive into it, shall we? Now, specifically, of course, on top of everything here, we know that Kathleen Kennedy finally got her iteration of Star Wars. This is it, guys. This is what Kathleen Kennedy has been asking for multiple years, and she finally got it. Unfortunately, that's the case. Now, with the Acolyte press tour disaster already creating major problems for Disney and Lucasfilm, one major development now has much to do with Kathleen Kennedy and her reaction and response to the incoming reviews of the Acolyte episode 1 and 2, and what looms for episode 3 next week that is prepared to break Star Wars in a way that was never done before. She goes on to deliver, as president of Lucasfilm, it has been the thrill of my lifetime to work with Leslye Headland and what she was set out to do with the Acolyte to support our push for diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is very important to me at Lucasfilm and our #1 priority. I think more often we are dealing with very self-absorbed fans that find entertainment in being a critic for no reason at all, especially with our series, The Acolyte. We have seen nothing but love and support for episodes 1 and 2, and whatever backlash, as some claim, that we have been getting is nothing more than a very thin margin of our core fan base that caused, of course, the same situation that we had with The Last Jedi, and something that Rian Johnson did not deserve to go through. You are always going to have loud critics that don't really love Star Wars at heart. Real fans will know that Star Wars is about expanding and evolving to fit the modern world and modern ways of communication, and are open to adapting through those ways. All of the communities that Leslye represents in this series was something that made me as a producer very emotional to the point where it brought me to tears. What Leslye said about my experience was true, that this series made me shed a couple of tears because I found this to be historic, a historic moment in Star Wars. A series that finally represents all of these communities, like the LGBTQ community, for example, that has been put to the wayside far too often in the film industry, that really has bothered me for so many years as a producer. Now guys, let me just say one thing about what Kathleen is alluding to here. She is alluding to what is going to happen in episode 3. As I stated before in the early segment of this video, just you prepare yourselves for what's about to actually drop next Wednesday. Alright, so all the episodes of The Acolyte, by the way, they are now shifting to Wednesdays as opposed to Tuesdays. Now, moving on, she goes on to continue, whatever backlash those that claim what the Acolyte is receiving, this is no different than what happened with episode 8, as in The Last Jedi. Everything was just blown out of proportion. In fact, there is a silent majority oftentimes that finds, of course, to be in a place of shame to raise their true opinion from the loud minority. And after careful research, we are coming to that same conclusion with this series. This show is one that is catered to women, and we went into this expecting that the toxic side of this community and part of the male demographic would really remain opposed to our view of who this show would be aimed at. We are taking various steps to properly represent diversity in all of our upcoming Star Wars projects. I am very pleased with the results. but not so pleased with how loud critics can be when they haven't even seen the full 8 episodes yet. Like Leslie, I am very proud to be a woman, and this series should really inspire women to have that pride. We really wanted to create that emotion and that feeling with this series. Everything in Star Wars doesn't need to cater to males. It doesn't always need to be locked into that demographic. It has been male-dominant for far too long. I find it to be reckless behavior, however, by the critics to say such terrible things about a series that hasn't even finished yet. Nobody has the right because it ruins the experience for others such as our loyal and new fans and the creators behind this thing that is just so wonderful. It really was quite the experience. So let me say one thing, guys, before I move on about Kathleen Kennedy spewing such garbage. Now, look, I think that we could all agree here that of course, the biggest side of all when it comes to the Star Wars fandom, what's interesting is that most of them do consist of males. Most people that grew up with this franchise were males. Now sure, there are women that grew up with this franchise, that's fine and all, but let's just face the facts here that Star Wars really is a male-driven series / franchise. That's basically what it was built for and what it was built on. Just like, for example, the Barbie movie was catered to women. It's just like that. It wasn't catered to males. It's the same exact situation. Now, what's interesting about this, again, is the fact that you have Leslye Headland and Kathleen Kennedy spewing such nonsense that they are, and have been, saying that there's no agenda here at Lucasfilm, when in reality what Kathleen Kennedy just spewed here is an agenda. She's going on and on about how basically all of these different communities are going to be represented, and how that was the #1 priority above proper storytelling and proper character development. And look, I pointed this out several times. Episodes 1 and 2 may be a little bit less on the agenda-driven strategies in the Acolyte, but when episode 3 and 4 drop, it really is going to be quite something. That's going to be worse than The Last Jedi. I fully do believe that, because next week and the week after that, I think are going to be a disastrous run for Lucasfilm, a colossal failure for Disney. So overall, I mean, Leslye Headland is going to continue to say many different things about the fans that dare speak up about how they feel about the Acolyte series, about how they feel about the direction of the High Republic era, 100 years before the events of the Phantom Menace. By the way, this is the tail end of the High Republic era, and interestingly enough, this is only going to get worse for them in the end. Alright, don't be too shocked if Kathleen Kennedy becomes more defensive over time, Leslye Headland becomes more defensive over time, because they feel the walls are closing in. More and more fans are beginning to wake up and walk away, and this is the very series that's going to do it. Mark my words. So, anyway, I would love to hear what everyone has to say about the current situation with the Acolyte series, episode 1 and 2, and what looms for episode 3. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.